Hello, students. Welcome to high school. I am quite certain that you have been through or are going to go through a lot of rules presentations today. Well, I like to call this presentation Building a Relationship with Mr. Sturtevant, not a rules presentation. And I think, quite frankly, that most relationships would thrive if there was a clearer understanding of expectations. I've been married for a quarter of a century, and I can tell you that it probably would have been very helpful on my first date with the lovely Mrs. Sturtevant to lay out some of my rules, policies, and philosophies. It probably would have been one date. But I'm sure some of you have some, I don't know, anxieties or preconceived notions about this class or me. And I hope that I can allay some of those fears in this presentation. I hope that you can leave this presentation feeling pretty good about this class and about me. Unfortunately, there are rules in this class and there are rules in life, and that's not going to change as you work your way through high school, go into college, or go into a job and married life. I'll never forget when I was in graduate school at Ohio State. I was 24 years old, went into a military history class, and I woke up late. So I was late to class. And I'll never forget how the professor just embarrassed me in front of everybody. I was totally unprepared for that. I was thinking, here I am, an adult, those rules about being late to class, that's kind of a high school thing, but boy, was I wrong. So I can assure you that the rules in my class are sane, and I won't embarrass you like that, I promise. Okay, first of all, you do need to be to class on time, and it's pretty cut and dried. I mean, you're in the room when the bell stops ringing, or you're not. It's cut and dried about whether you're on time or not. But here's what you can do. If it's something important, if it's an emergency, if it's something you have to take care of, just come see me before the bell rings, and I'll certainly let you take care of it. Here's one thing that happens on probably a daily basis, which is really frustrating for me. I'll be chilling out beside the door greeting you guys, and some student will come up and say, hey, do I have time to go to the restroom? Or do I have time to go to my locker? Or do I have time to go text my friend? Well, I don't know if you have time. I mean, there's a lot of variables involved in that question. So you know better than I do whether you have time to go to the restroom or your locker or go text a friend. So you're better off not asking that question. You can either try and be on time, or, if you're late, there will be a consequence, but please don't come up and ask me if I have time. And shoot for being on time, because there's some great stuff that happens in here. One thing that I'm diligent about is extracting from you an honest effort. So I'm not going to ask you to do something unreasonable. I'm not going to ask you to turn flips or anything like that. But when you're in here, you're here with me. I'm not going to tolerate you putting your head down and going to sleep. I'm not going to tolerate you not doing the work. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to work really hard to make assignments relevant, make activities relevant, engaging, and interesting. And so this generally is not a problem in my class. But one thing that's a major distraction is your cell phone. Digital citizenship is the concept that you use your technology appropriately. If we're involved in some important activity and you are lost in some fantasy game on your smartphone, that's not digital citizenship. If I feel your phone is being a distraction, is keeping you from learning, I will certainly point that out. And guess what? I need to work on my digital citizenship too. I think most adults do. So we're in the same boat on this. Practice courtesy. Boy, I'll tell you what, I hope we have a lot of interesting discussions in here. And sometimes students can disagree with one another. It's okay to disagree. It's not okay to attack someone personally. And you also might have some personality issues with some other students in this class. And those are things I'm willing to help you with. I'm willing to help you work through. But if you do any type of personal attack on a student, that's not acceptable. Now, whenever you talk about rules or policies, you also have to talk about consequences. It's really frustrating for me to see a colleague or a parent, or if I'm at a restaurant and the kid's acting up, for the person who is in charge to give an endless number of warnings. One time I was at a Wendy's restaurant and this child was really acting up, and the parent started the counting thing. 1, 2, 3. That's never worked. I've never seen that work. So I'll tell you something. I'm not going to get into this bunker mentality, and say, hey, look, I'm going to give you another warning there. If you are doing something that I find unacceptable, I will warn you to stop doing that. I'll ask you to stop doing that. It'll be a reasonable request. It might be, put that down before you hurt somebody, or please stop jumping up and down and swearing. Okay, it'll be very specific in terms of what I want you to stop doing. Now, if you choose at that point to disregard a very reasonable request, then that's insubordination. I won't ask you to do anything unreasonable. I'll never do that. But if you choose to just ignore that request or blow that request off, that's an issue of insubordination. If it's not a dangerous situation, I will have to call your parent at that point, and I'll probably let the main office know what's going on. Now, I've been doing this for a long time. I think the last student I sent to the office for disciplinary reasons was in the mid-1990s. It was a study hall, and this young lady was out of her seat. I asked her to return to her seat, and she called me every conceivable name that I've ever heard, and some interesting combinations of profanity. It's like, well, yeah, I guess you could put those two together. It was just a shock to me, because this student and I actually got along pretty well. It's funny that not long after that, she came and apologized to me and said, hey, I was just mad at my boyfriend. You had nothing to do with it. So I really pride myself on getting along with students, and I don't think it'll ever come to that. Okay, just to review. How do you get along with Mr. Sturtevant? Well, you come to class on time. You give an honest effort. You practice courtesy. And you practice digital citizenship. You do these things, we're going to get along just fine. And if I can encourage you to think about something, the next relationship you attempt to build with someone, why don't you maybe put together a little YouTube presentation and have them watch? Wouldn't that be an interesting thing to do in a couple of years when you get asked to the prom? People, we're going to have a good year in here.